I got to tell you, that is the best backdrop ever, and I want that for my screensaver.
So, what was the process like updating this film and choosing what story beats to keep? Because it's very faithful, but you do update the story in some really smart ways.
Thanks so much. I'm really happy to hear you say that. My first and foremost intent was to be faithful to the original and to honor it because I loved it and I grew up with it. And I just thought I feel very privileged to introduce this story to a new generation. And I'm a huge fan of monster movies, but I wanted to really find more and more moments to humanize Harold. And so the whole Roomba sequence and the honey and him in the mirror were chances to find new colors for Harold to play. So instead of just grunting and he was always going to be a fish out of water, but it was really fun to have him be at odds with the modern world in different ways. We kept certain beats like him being a fish out of water and going into the world. I love what the first one did with the hospital sequence, where they use the paddles on him and he goes to the fast food restaurant window. Love those sequences, but we wanted to also say they did those well. What can we do? So we gave Harold agency when he sees the picture of the princess. We say, oh, why is he after finding out about her? It gives him a mystery to follow. And it gave us a fun sequence for him being dragged by a bus. Another one was Kubat's fantastic in the first one. I love that he disappeared and then he pretends he's dead and then he shows up in the first one. In this one, I thought, let's make him more present. Let's just try something different where he's actively trying to find out who stole his mummy, tracking down the inhaler clue, tracking down the kids, finding out that they're at the carnival. So it makes him in this one, a more present antagonist. Another one was Harold is just a fantastic dancer. That Phil Wright, who plays Harold, is just a world-class gifted choreographer. So leaning into his abilities to express movement and to dance, why not use that? So that gave us a chance for him to take his 4,000-year-old creaky bones, start to stretch them out a little bit, and then to become the life of the party and to finally belong.
Yeah, I thought Phil Wright was so great as the mummy, and it's a interesting role for him because it's he grunts, but it's like a largely a nonverbal role, and it's so much about his movement and giving context through that. As a director, what challenges come with one of the main characters not really speaking in a way that we can understand?
It's almost like doing Harpo Marx, and you watch the Marx Brothers and you go, this guy communicated so much through, or the great silent comedians. So Phil and I watched a lot of, I shot him watch Harpo, the Marx Brothers. We watched Buster Keaton. We watched a lot of Chaplin. We watched some of the great scenes with Lucy and Harpo Marx in the mirror and her doing the candy conveyor belt. I think the biggest challenge for me was I wanted people I wanted to humanize a mummy. And to do that, there was a lot of elements that went into building the character. And I thought if we humanize the mummy, everything's going to come into place for this movie. So we spent a lot of time with the makeup department, the prosthetic special effects makeup department, to make a suit that moved fluidly with Harold. So he could play stiff, but then he could become fluid and comedic. And then we made sure that he had prosthetics that weren't latex like the one 20 years ago, but silicone, which now wasn't available back then, so that all his performance comes through, every facial expression comes through that silicone and it moves with him. And then the grunt language was really important. So I would go through with Phil on every line of dialogue and write subtitles for him. So he's saying, okay, so the kids are saying this and you're grunting here. You're saying something specific. You're not just going, rah, rah, rah. You're saying, you have something in your mind you're saying. So every line of dialogue was written out for him to interpret in grunt language. And we would spend a lot of time figuring out which sounds would make the most sense for those emotions. And we did that not just in production, but all the way through post. Like I was doing them in the microphone in the editing room, just so we would have reference. And then we said, oh, that's an opportunity. There's comedy here, there's drama, there's emotiveness here. And we did that throughout, even right up through the end of post. Like little things like, I'll give you an example. They're in Buzzy's shop and she tries to look at his amulet and he is very protective because without the amulet, he deanimates completely. So she tries to touch it and he snarls at her. And then he gets admonished by the friends who say, listen, she's a friend. Instead of him saying nothing, we had him go, like, I'm not like my bad, I'm sorry. And it made such a difference in humanizing him that he feels bad about his behavior, as opposed to, you can't tell me what to do, or whatever you could interpret from those grunts. So we were very specific, and I was really proud of what we all built together, the whole team.
Great. Alex, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thanks so much. A really pleasure to talk with you. And I hope I can get that backdrop at the merch table because I love it.
Thank you.